Hello and welcome to episode 1300 of The Sleeper and the Bus. It is Friday, May 24th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, 1300, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's bright and early. I'm exhausted, but 1300, that's always a fun number.
Yeah, nice. I love the round numbers, hitting the hundos there. I've been around for a lot of them, too. I know we
Yeah.
figured it out at a milestone a while ago. I don't remember exactly how many, but it's been a lot. I just want to get a little quick apology out front about no Thursday episode or Friday SP chart. I was just under the weather, y'all, grinding. But by the time, and then ended up going to the movie under the weather. Avoided vomiting there. I told you that story, but didn't feel great and came home and passed out. So my apologies there if you were waiting for that. If you have any questions about who to start on a Friday, if on the weekend, because by the time you're hearing this, the Friday games will have started. But if you got any questions about the weekend starts, hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to help. But Justin, we got some two steps to talk about. And we got some fun pitchers to get into because some of these guys have been pitching well. And is it time to kind of roster them with some confidence? Others are facing some really difficult matchups that present an interesting challenge. And as always, we go in team alphabetical order, starting with the city. So we start with Arizona. And I got to tell you, man, I was dialed in for this game, mainly for the other pitcher, if I'm being honest, to Ryne Nelson. I was there to watch Tyler Glasnow. I wanted to see the Glasnow start. He actually wasn't great. Nelson was, though, 5 scoreless in LA on 8 base runners with 5 Ks. Excellent outing in LA after a couple big blips. 21 hits total to Baltimore and Detroit in his 2 games before that, including 8 earnies against my Tigers. I mean, that's crazy. That's about how many runs they score per week. So now you got Ryne Nelson going to Texas and the Mets on the heels of this big start. Does it give you any confidence to take the plunge here with Ryne Nelson? And if so, where? Because I doubt it's a sweep if you are interested.
I mean, I guess in 15s, you might be willing to risk it. You just never really know who you're really going to get from Ryne Nelson from start to start. Like
as evidenced by these last 2, Detroit murdering him, and then him doing a great job against the Dodgers.
But I mean, even with the great start against the Dodgers, you still got 3 walks. Like that could have ended a lot more poorly than it did. And he hasn't been like the big strikeout guy that we've seen him kind of show off in the past either. Well under a strikeout inning this year. He isn't walking as many guys or giving up as many home runs, which are both really good things. But I just don't know that I want to trust it, especially with Texas on the docket. Feels like a game he could get beat up around for. So I would probably avoid it in most formats, but I mean, 15 teamers, it's slim pickings right now. So I totally understand people going for it in that.
Yeah, that's the only place I can really get there is 15 teamers for Ryne Nelson. I mean, you mentioned all the issues with the inconsistency and who you're going to get. Interestingly, by the way, that Dodgers start did feature an opener, but Brandon Hughes didn't even finish the first inning. So Nelson was in to finish the first there and then go on for his 5 innings. So it's kind of bizarre how that worked out. He did get the win. I guess it helped a little bit. But usually with an opener, you're hoping for at least the full first inning, if not a bit more. And I guess, let's see, what did he do? 2/3 of an inning and a hit, and they were like, we just wanted you to face the first 3 batters. I guess they just wanted to clear that Betts Ohtani Freeman out of the way for Nelson so that he could start with Will Smith. Not that that's easy, but you don't get the Betts Ohtani Freeman off the top there. So, yeah, just be careful. I think 15 is the only spot I'm possibly getting to Nelson. This guy might not belong on the list. I will acknowledge that. I got a little bit of pushback on Charlie Morton in my updated rankings for being too low. And then I kind of checked in and I was like, yeah, I mean, I get it. His numbers are better than I had thought. I think I had a perception of him that was a little bit flawed. 3.35 ERA, 120 whip on the season for Charlie Morton. He's been pitching pretty well. Walks are a bit up there, as they can be at times with him. They were last year at 12%, this year at 10%. But he misses bats. He's got good win opportunity on this Atlanta ball club, of course. He gets Washington and Oakland. I think it's a sweep everywhere. I'm just more curious of where you're at with Charlie Morton. Are you trusting the 40-year-old pretty consistently in most formats? Where do you stand with Morton?
I mean, I was completely off of Morton after last year. I know like the
Me
ERA
too.
was good, but the whip wasn't. And he was like, last year I was writing a buy low, sell high article on Fantasy Pros, and he was on the sell high list like every single week. Like I could not like stop putting him on that list, and it never really came to fruition. He was fine outside of the whip being bad, but I feel like a lot of the same flaws that we saw last year are still around. Plus, you have like he's got the highest zone contact of his career. It's like 92%. Like he's getting pretty lucky with a 276 BABIP right now, kind of holding down a lot of what should be some badness. And now it helps
Well,
that the defense is good behind him, but
yeah, but you point that out with Charlie Morton. He generally runs a higher BABIP.
yeah.
So historically, that isn't the case, and I wonder if that's going to regress for him. Like you said, that
Oh, and
276 BABIP, that could be scary then, and deliver some pretty bad whip. 120 right now is certainly palatable, but you mentioned it was a 143 last year for Morton, so
yeah,
that's got me quaking in my boots a little bit. I'm nervous here. Again, with Washington, Oakland, I got him for the two-step here. That's not up for
yeah.
debate. The question is like your confidence beyond that, and it sounds like you're a little bit nervous, like I am.
Yeah, I mean, he's not allowing a lot of contact. He's allowed 7 walks in his last 8 innings, which was his last 2 starts. Um, like, the underlying skills tell me like things are going to regress pretty hard fairly quickly, but he made it work for a whole season last year. He's, I mean, he's like ancient at this point. Like, I guess the dude kind of just knows how to pitch, so it wouldn't be surprising
True.
to me if he continues to figure it out.
Yeah, I could see Morton kind of just pulling a rabbit out of his hat a little bit there. It all comes down to that whip. Like you said, the ERA was already pretty good last year at 364. You got your Ks, you got your 14 dubs. There is value there. I think he's pretty strong in 15s. It's just a little wobbly. I will say 92 was probably too low. He was in the team streamer category, which does rank all the way up to
Yeah.
71. So maybe don't get hung up on the number, but I wonder if maybe Charlie Morton, at least for now, could be in the most formats tier that I had, which was 39 to 70. So I
Probably.
I take the feedback there. At the very least, I could move him up within the team streamers. All right, next up is Cole Irvin. Wait, why is he in? Did they lose somebody?
John Means
Oh, that's right. That's right.
forearm.
Yep,
Yeah.
John means business to the IL. That's a bummer. So Irvin
Yeah.
back in, gets Boston and Tampa Bay both at home. I mean, that's really the spot that we would need Irvin. Is Camden these days? Is this enough for you to trust? I mean, it was kind of interesting. He had to go to the bullpen with a 3.15 ERA and a 1.10 WHIP, but when Means and Grayson came back, Irvin was the obvious one. But this is why you have a nice sixth starter, because then somebody gets hurt, he immediately goes back in. Are you jumping back in on the Cole Irvin train? I should have said
I'm,
Cole train. Damn it, screwed it.
yeah, messed that one up. Uh, I think if you're win seeking, yeah, why not? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm. Aren't
you
we all?
Oreo,
Aren't
yeah,
we all win seeking
right?
permanently?
You're not
God,
getting strikeouts. I mean, so far this year, Cole Irvin has a 16% strikeout rate.
not his
So,
strength.
yeah, you're not getting strikeouts, but it is a home where he's protected by Camden. The Rays aren't very good, and
They're not playing
Boston,
very well.
yeah, Boston's mediocre. So, and I think obviously the best part of Boston has been their rotation. It's not
Yeah.
been their offense. So, like, yeah, I don't mind this one if you're trying to sneak a dub or two, but I don't love these kind of guys that don't get strikeouts, because then you're really relying on wins, which is a fluky stat. So,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely for 15s, you're probably rolling with it. And for 12s and 10s, it really kind of depends on what you got around it. But I
He's in
think he could be in
consideration,
play.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just to try to get the wins and some good ratios there. Like you said, K's will be scant with Cole Irvin. Cooper Criswell for Boston is going here, and he gets Baltimore and Detroit. He goes to Baltimore and hosts Detroit. Now, he'd been pitching well. It's been up and down lately. Like, he kind of started off looking pretty nice. Still has a great ERA, 2.86 ERA. Oh, no, no, no. Okay, sorry. 2 starts ago, he got beat up. I thought his most recent start was bad. Five runs, 3 of them earned in 3 2/3 against Tampa Bay. He faces Tampa Bay again, 5 1/3, 2 runs. So he bounced back nicely against them. Again, Cooper Criswell with the results this year, 2.86 ERA, 113 WHIP. They've been good, 34 Ks and 34 2/3. I think 15s, he's become a bit of a staple. Are you dipping down any further than that with Cooper Criswell in 12s or 10s? Like, what's your outlook on him? Because this is a reliever to starter conversion that is really working well for Boston.
Yeah. Again, he's another one of these guys that's not going to get a ton of strikeouts. And you just never really know how deep he's going to go in a game. So you kind of play matchups with him. I think he is a team streamer in 12s and 15s. Probably not touching him too often in 10s, but he gets Baltimore, which is a really tough start. At least it is in Baltimore. But then he gets Detroit at home, which, like, Detroit's been better, but I'm still not afraid of their offense. So
no, not at all.
I think
the offense has gone even colder, if you can believe that. They found sub-zero temperatures to hit with their offense. Yeah. So bad.
I mean,
so yeah,
he's had good strikeout rates in 2 of the last 3 starts. So
yeah, I mean, between Criswell and Irvin, like, Criswell has a 24% K rate. Like, he actually has been kind of there. He's not like a major K guy, but he's also not some flame out, Cole Irvin style with like 17% K rate. So there's some intrigue there with Criswell, even in the shallower formats for me.
Yeah, me too. I'm a little afraid of the Baltimore start, but again, it's in Baltimore, so I'm willing to risk it in kind of some deeper formats.
Brayan Bello is also getting this same 2-step. Criswell's the one who will face Irvin. Bello goes the day after he gets Grayson Rodriguez, but he gets obviously at Baltimore and home to Detroit. Now, name value, Bello's is way ahead of like Cooper Criswell, for example. But results so far this year, that's not the case. 4.04 ERA, 116 WHIP, and 37 Ks in 42 innings. So I think people are still trusting him in 15s. Totally agree with that for Bello. But I guess it's a little bit of a temperature check-in on him. Where do you stand with Bello? Just came off the IL a few starts ago. Has 3 starts this month. 2 good, 1 bad. The 1 bad was at St. Louis, which is a bummer. They got him for 3 homers. Another bummer because of that park. You don't usually give up a bunch of bombs there. And St. Louis hasn't been great, so that kind of stunk for Bello. But then he bounced back with a nice one. At Baltimore versus Detroit, do we like Brayan Bello still in things shallower than 15s? Because I think he's still pretty firm lock in the lineup in 15s. Unless you disagree. You can feel free to disagree there.
Bello is like the perfect example of a guy that when I think about him as a pitcher, I think he's a better pitcher than he actually is.
I totally agree. His reputation is higher than the results right now. I think go ahead.
It reminds me a lot like of, obviously a completely different style of pitcher, right? But like very much like Dustin May, where like in my head, Dustin May is one thing, but when I actually watch Dustin May and when like he's a vastly different pitcher than what I think of him. And I think Bello is that guy, this year where I think of Bello as a strikeout dude. And I think of Bello as a guy who is a really good pitcher, is just refining some things, but like he doesn't get strikeouts. And like his command is so hit or miss from start to start, sometimes from pitch to pitch. The home runs have been a massive issue for him this year. And I think he's one of those guys that like, if I had done my ranks based on like my thought process, he would have been much higher than where he was in my ranks, because I do him by my projections now. And that's
a good one where running the numbers brings you back to earth on a player like Bello.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got a pretty high ground ball rate this year, which is good. Well, the problem is that defense behind him, not as good as, we would like it to be. So I'm probably out on Bello for this 2-step. You get that Baltimore start, which can be really scary. And then you're home to Detroit, which, like I said,
he can bounce back there.
Yeah, but Detroit's looked a little better offensively, so
Will Baltimore make it moot is the problem, right? Like
yeah.
he could get beat up by Baltimore enough, Bayo could, that
Give up
regardless of what he does
three
against
home
Detroit,
runs to St. Louis.
that's the
Like,
thing. I do want to say one thing about the home runs. You mentioned that they're a problem this year. They are, but it's two multi-home run games. And you know where the other one is? Freaking Oakland, dude.
yeah,
He's given up 5 homers in Oakland and St. Louis. That is
he's at,
crazy.
he's actually had like one of the lightest schedules this year. I mean, he started at Seattle. Seattle's been awful to start the year.
Hmm.
To Oakland, then Baltimore, good team.
Hmm.
The Angels, the Pirates, the Nationals,
Mm,
the Cardinals,
mm,
the Rays.
mm.
Like,
One legitimately tough outing, and then a couple like fringe ones.
yeah. So like I don't have a lot of faith in Brayan Bello. He's been probably the most disappointing Red Sox starter and one of the most disappointing just fantasy
Well,
starters this year.
part of that is how good
Red
they've been
Sox, yeah,
around
they've been
him,
great.
right? Like let's not go too hard on a 4.04 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP. So I want to give Bale a little bit of leeway there, and he has 5 dubs. So like he's
He's
been
got a
doing some
484
things.
FIP.
That part is scary, and it's probably due a lot to the homers and the well, really just the homers, I would think. So
Yeah.
I understand the trepidation. I think I'm going to go with Bayo in 15s, like I said, for sure. 12s, he's on the table for me. I want to stand by him a little bit, kind of see where he's at. But I got to be honest, and I don't know if this is how my rankings went. I don't think they did. I think if I was rerunning it, and one of the flaws of doing in-season rankings is I don't have time to deep dive everybody. I wish I
Yeah.
could, but I'm literally ranking all 150 pitchers who are in a rotation. Now, for the bottom group, I'm just throwing the Rockies starters on there and the handful of bums that I'm just saying hard pass. But even if you cut those guys, it's 134 guys that had like an actual ranking. I can't deep dive everyone. I think I would have ranked Criswell and Bayo a lot closer. Bayo's 54, Criswell's 100. They would be so much closer to each other
They probably
if I
should be in the
reran the
middle. Yeah.
rankings. Yeah. Yeah. And like maybe neck and neck. Because I think right now I actually have a preference toward Criswell, which if you had asked me that coming into the year, I would have said there's
But
no
that
way.
that that thought process of like we were talking about at the beginning with Bayo is like, oh, he's like a really good pitcher that is, still kind of figuring things out a little bit. I don't know that he
Hmm.
is. I think he's a mediocre pitcher that's still figuring things out.
Yeah, I do think his upside is a little bit
Well,
lighter than maybe his reputation is
I think the
perceived.
upside is still there. I just don't know that he's gonna
Where
reach it this year.
where do the strikeouts come from? Does Bayo figure out a way to start missing bats more consistently? Because if not, then that really caps his ceiling for me. But I do want to point out 4.04 ERA, 1.16 WHIP, not a bad ratio set. 5 wins in 8 starts. Because don't forget he missed 22 days on the IL. That's pretty good. That's good enough for me to get there in 15s, heavily on the board in 12s, and at least in the mix in 10s. It depends what's available out there where I would rank Bayo, and I'll do my 2-start chart on Monday so people can see exactly where I have everyone ranked. I had to put this one on here just to give him his due for his last outing. You're not starting Austin Gomber because it's Cleveland and at the Dodgers. So he gets the Guardians and Coors and then goes to the Dodgers. There's no universe where you're starting him, I don't think. But
No,
I do want to point out Gomber's been legitimately brilliant in May. Do you know what his ERA is in 4 May starts? 3 of which
I
were on the road, by
don't.
the way. It
Yeah,
is 068 with 22 base runners in 26 and 2/3. So that's a sub 1 WHIP. I can do the math on that one in my head. And then 19 strikeouts in 26 and 2/3. Obviously, strikeouts not his strength. In true Rockies and Gomber fashion, 1 win. You love that he has an 068 ERA and 4 starts and 1 win. So I'm not starting him obviously here with Cleveland and the Dodgers, but I'm curious, is this run from Gomber and his whole season, by the way, he's given up more than 3 just twice, and both times it was 4 earned. He's been pretty good, 276, 111 ERA whip combo. Are you ever getting Gombered these days in deeper leagues?
I mean, I'm not just because I've been Gombered before.
Once you get Gombered, you never want to get Gombered again.
And the problem with a guy like Gomber is like you can't use him at home. Um, so like they're like, and I always love when people are like, oh, well, you can't use him for half his starts. It's usually more than half his starts if you're playing in a weekly league, because you're not always getting a rocky start or, a poor
Exactly.
start
Yep.
and an away start, usually
And
getting
he's in the
both.
Dodgers division.
Yeah.
And like I respect the Padres. They
Mhm.
scare me enough. Like, so then you're not even using those road ones. So then, like, how many starts are you really using from him? But
Yeah.
again, I just wanted to point out Gomber's been great. I can't get there either. Respect to anybody who's gotten value out of this run, because it's been amazing, but I'm just not there with Austin Gomber.
It was like all the people who were like screaming about the Ryan Feltner start last night. Like, oh, this is why you stream those kind of guys on the road. Like Ryan Feltner, like going into last night, had like an almost 70 RA on the
Yeah.
road. Like,
And I like him, and I'm with you that he
yeah,
has not been super startable.
no, he's actually been way better at home, which you can never trust. So
Mm-mm.
I just Rocky started the places I have Rocky starters are DCs because no one ever drafts them.
Yep.
And then like on Dynasty League teams where I'm rebuilding and I'm trying to take my ratios, but still get it. Yeah, I'm trying to take my ratios, but still get the innings.
Yeah, that makes sense there. So you're stacking those Rockies. Nick Nastrini for the White Sox, former Dodgers prospect of some acclaim, got absolutely dumpstered this week in a spot start. But he's in the rotation now. His numbers are horrendous through 3 starts. Let me see if it's just the 1 start or if it's all of them that are
It's
bad.
the last two.
It's the last 2. Yeah. He was pretty good against KC back on April 15th, but then Philly trounced him in Philly back on April 21st. Then a month later at Toronto, just absolutely crushed. Can't imagine you got much love for him. It's Toronto and at Milwaukee. That's pretty devastating. Are you anywhere on Nick Nastrini?
What do you think his K minus walk rate is for the
Got to
season?
be negative. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm going to guess negative, and that's why you're asking.
Yeah, negative 8%. Like it's not even like -2. Like it's negative 8%.
-8, dude.
11 walks over his last 2 starts. Like
That's a nightmare.
yeah, no thanks. I'm not doing that.
That's a hard pass on Nick Nastrini. Casey Mize gets Pittsburgh and a trip to Boston. He's been, Casey Mize-ish. He's been fine, but certainly not special. 4.57 ERA, 1.35 WHIP. There have been ups and downs. He did get absolutely murked in KC this week, which definitely inflated the ERA. It raised it by more than a run from 3.50 to 4.57. That's why I said he's been mostly good, but it might be shaded by that last start there, which, hey, you got to be careful with KC in KC. We talked earlier this year about how it's a better hitter's park than most people realize. It suppresses home runs, but nothing else. And the Royals are good. So those 2 factors are tough. So he got killed there. Are you in on Mize anywhere in deep leagues, perhaps with the Pittsburgh at Boston?
Yeah, I mean, he's really had 2 bad starts this year.
Mm-hmm.
He had the start against KC and then a start at the Yankees. Both of which you could have avoided. So,
yeah, especially the at Yankee. Like, if you're not ready to be scared of KC yet, you should change that. But even if you kind of like, okay, I'll start him here. But at the Yankees one, you should have been able to dodge that for Mize.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's got a pretty low strand rate. Makes you feel like, hey, maybe he's just gotten unlucky. In both of those starts, like he had a 40% strand rate and then a 55% strand rate. Like, those are doing a lot of damage to him. He's not a guy who gets strikeouts. You're just never going to get the strikeout stuff from Casey Mize. But, yeah, he can win a couple games. Like, these aren't matchups you're really afraid of with Pittsburgh and at Boston. So I would probably roll him in 12s and 15s and the occasional 10.
Yep. That's exactly where I'm at with Casey Mize. I'm not jumping off completely because of this bad outing. Alec Marsh gets a trip to Minnesota and then hosts San Diego for the Royals. It is weird to say this, but at 32 and 19, you can say that even if you're nervous about the ratios, and I'm not sure you should be, Alec Marsh's ratios have been great this year, but even if you were nervous about that, the win potential is actually pretty high. He's 4-1 with a 2.72 ERA, 1.07 WHIP. I guess my real question here with Marsh is, should he even be on this list? Is he an auto start? He hasn't done enough yet to be an auto, right?
I don't think he's an auto start, and he's definitely gotten lucky. We're talking about a 252 BABIP from a guy who's like a career 291 guy. While I like Marsh and I like some of the changes that they made because he's inducing a lot of weak contact, and he is protected from home runs in that park. Like, the stuff isn't great. Like, he's a very mediocre pitcher, just generally speaking. That being said, like, he's on a good team. He's doing a good job of, inducing a lot of weak contact. He doesn't walk guys. So
Yeah, what do you think about that walk improvement? Because that's really the biggest turnaround here for Marsh, dropping it from 11 to 7%. You mentioned the BABIP and how that's gone really well for him too, but paired with the walk suppression, he's been able to limit base runners very nicely for Marsh. Do you buy into the walk rate gains at all?
I absolutely do, because like we said, like, a percentage or two jump in zone percentage can kind of be a big thing for a guy. His jump in zone percentage is 5%. Like, he's gone from being a below average zone percentage guy to above average zone percentage guy. So he's saying, like, listen, I'm going to go in the zone because if you make contact, it's going to be weaker contact. And he is giving up more contact than he ever has at 90%. But like I said, a lot of it's kind of weaker stuff, and he's letting the park protect him. So I think this is kind of a purposeful change by Marsh and the Royals to go, listen, I'm going to live in the zone a little bit, and I'm going to make guys, I'm not going to make guys miss, but I'm going to make guys kind of ground out or pop up. And it seems to be working. Now, I do worry that will change, and the ball will start as things heat up. If there's a ball change, that I'm always afraid of with MLB.
Of course,
I am a little afraid that may change, but I think you kind of take him start to start. To me, Alec Marsh is a team streamer through and through in every format.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm holding him because these ratios have been amazing. But even with the golden ratios, I'm not just auto starting him yet. But Alec Marsh has been good. My boy Griffin Canning gets the Yankees and at Seattle. I can't quit this MFer. Every time I do, he pulls me back in with a gem. He now has stringing together some gems. It hasn't even dropped that dud on my head this month yet, but I'm sure it's around the corner. But in 4 starts, at Cleveland, home to KC, home to St. Louis, and at Houston. So three solid offenses there. I'm including Houston among the solid offenses because, again, their pitching is the primary reason that they're not very good. And, of course, Cleveland and KC are there too. He has a 1.99 ERA in 22 2/3 this month right now. Are we buying any of that for Griffin Canning enough to start him Yankees and at Seattle?
The Seattle one doesn't scare me.
No.
I mean, the Seattle one for me is like, okay, whatever. It's really interesting to see kind of this change in profile on Canning. Like, as a guy who, like, hey, he gets strikeouts, but we can't really trust him start to start, to, like, he doesn't really get strikeouts anymore, but trust him a little bit more start to start. I mean, he's got a pretty low BABIP. He's not getting any ground balls. I mean, it's like a 30% ground ball rate right now. I'm a little worried that there isn't enough juice in Griffin Canning to kind of warrant the downside risk, especially when you're playing on a bad team like Anaheim. So I'm probably skipping this with the Yankees coming to town, but I think in 15s, it's really hard to.
That's the tough part, right? Is like, is there enough out there in 15s that you can skip Canning? Is there any hope for the strikeouts returning? He's missed bats before. That's part of my appeal with Canning, is that he can miss bats. I wonder if there's a concerted change here because it wasn't working. And he's like, well, maybe I don't be a strikeout guy because I put up a 7.45 ERA in April. And so then here in May, the strikeouts have disappeared a bit and the results have improved. So I don't know there. I think I am going for him in 15s, though, just because I don't think things are deep enough to not go for him.
It's interesting because he's actually dropped his zone rate from 40% or from 44% down to 40%.
Was he living in the zone too much?
I think he probably was, and he was getting the strikeouts because he's getting guys to swing through in the zone, but he's also giving up a lot of hard contact. But you look, especially over like the last 2 starts, like he has dropped his zone rate from, the previous 2 starts against Cleveland and against the Royals. He was at a 46% zone rate. Last two starts, he's been 35 and 38%. So like Griffin Canning's going, I'm not going to the zone anymore. So I don't know if this is like a change of like maybe there was something they saw in St. Louis and Houston, like these are teams that will chase out of the zone, or they were just saying like, hey, just don't get beat by the home run, or if this will be something to continue. But the hard part with Griffin Canning is when you start looking at his kind of game logs and those underlying stats from game to game, they're different every time. Like you just don't know who he's going to be when he walks out there.
He doesn't know. Griffin Canning is like, I will be somebody different today.
So, and it's not even like you can like compare like, oh, well, he faced the Yankees and the Mariners earlier. He hadn't faced either of those teams. So like, it's really hard to know who you're going to get this week with Griffin Canning. So again, 15s, I think I'm rolling with it because it's really hard not to roll with a 2-start guy, especially one that, you're using pretty regularly. But in 10s and 12s, I'm probably sticking away from it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think Canning might get an ounce of consideration for me in 12s, but some of the guys we've already mentioned, I'd rather go for. So if they're available, he's going to be relatively low. I will say that. Like I said, I do a 2-start ranking in the daily SP chart on Mondays, and so I'll be doing that. And I don't know that Canning is going to be that high. And like I said, I've been a Canning guy. I'm nervous here. And the Yankees terrify me. Yeah. I'm not trying to face them with anybody, dude, if I can avoid it. Like, they are so freaking scary. What about Gavin Stone? He goes to New York, but the other one, he goes to the Mets and then hosts Colorado. Pretty good setup here. Another guy that I definitely like. Hasn't panned out to the level that I was hoping for this year. But has a 3.60 ERA, 1.30 WHIP. I guess, 4 wins too. Maybe he is better than I thought. I guess the part that has been a disconnect for me is I thought Gavin Stone, I thought he would have some more strikeouts, and they just haven't been there. But the success has been, the wins are there. I feel pretty good about this. I think Stone's a consideration everywhere, and a start in 15s. What say you of the 25-year-old Gavin Stone?
I mean, prior to his last start, he had a 3.27 ERA. Like, yeah, he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but he puts up pretty darn good ratios, and he's on the Dodgers. So I think while he isn't a must start, he's definitely a should start in every format, just because wins are like the hardest thing to get right now, as you know.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. Thank you very much.
And Gavin Stone can get wins because he goes 5 to 6 innings every start, and he's got the Dodgers behind him. So you add in like these are 2 really good starts in a really good park in New York, and then against a Rockies team that struggles on the road. And I think he's an easy must start in every format this week.
Yep, I think so too. With Gavin Stone, I'm definitely a fan, and I'm in. Trevor Rogers goes to the Padres and hosts the Rangers. So a couple teams that aren't playing their best, they're kind of treading around or just below 500 or just above. Kind of depending on when you check on the standings. But they're both kind of scary at the same time, right? Like we know that the Padres and the Rangers can do damage. Is Trevor Rogers building up any trust with you? I think he's coming off of a gem, if I recall correctly, but he has a 6.11 year. Oh, no.
Start
2
before
starts
last,
ago. Yeah. But then got Milwaukee, which was very avoidable, right? And I try not to crush guys when they get beat up in starts where I expected them to get beat up. Like, I'm not starting guys against Philly and Milwaukee.
Yeah, but you were starting against Oakland for
I
a
know.
I know. The problem is you don't know who Trevor Rogers is.
No, that's true. I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm just saying I don't hold the Philly and Milwaukee too much against him. I do hold the Oakland 8 Ernies. I hold that heavily against him. But
we've talked about Oakland, like they hit lefties. They hit lefties
and
hard.
They hit for power. And they hit 2 bombs off of him.
And so I mean, theoretically you could have gotten away from that. I don't know anybody who did.
In Oakland, though. Come on. If you like Trevor Rogers, you were definitely on that.
Look, I mean, he pitches in Miami, so it's not like, that's true for him. A home start versus Oakland is lateral. I just don't. I think Trevor Rogers still gets kind of, and I'm partially responsible for this too, because I fall victim to it. Like, I think we remember who we wanted Trevor Rogers to be as opposed to who he
Certainly.
is.
I think
Um,
that's 100% fair and accurate.
because Trevor Rogers probably shouldn't be rostered in any mixed league
I'm
at this
not so
point.
sure he should be. I agree. I
Yeah.
think it might be like NL only at this juncture
Hmm.
for Trevor Rogers. Simeon Woods Richardson's been pitching pretty well, and he gets KC and at Houston. That's a pretty difficult two-step. Has Simeon Woods Richardson shown you enough to take the plunge here with a 2.57 ERA, 111 WHIP, another low strikeout guy, 26 strikeouts in 35 innings, and did the classic 4 2/3 last time out, but it was 0 runs, 3 hits, and a walk. So that was kind of the frustrating thing. Was like, let him get that final out. But what do you think of Simeon Woods Richardson with the KC Houston double dip?
Yeah, I didn't watch that start, so I don't know exactly what happened in the fifth inning where they decided to pull him. But that is Minnesota for you, where they're just
Yeah,
they're gonna pull guys sometimes a little bit too, or not too early, but earlier than we would like, because they're trying to play a conservative approach with their pitching. He's been really good. Doesn't allow walks, doesn't allow home runs, doesn't get a ton of strikeouts either. So there isn't like a ton of upside in his arm. And these are two really scary matchups. I think in 15s, you're definitely rolling with it just because he has been so good. But in 10s and 12s, I think the matchups probably dictate you don't do it. But I can also understand, like, you're looking at a guy with a 2.57 ERA and a
on a
pretty,
quality team.
yeah, 111 whip, like, on a decent team. So uh, I don't think I would do it in a 10 or a 12, but I can understand why people would.
Think I'm getting there in a 12 if I need to. Again, the thing with that when we're recommending like 10s and 12s, we don't always know what's going to be available because
Yeah.
every league is different there because it's more wide open. So he might not even be available. Simeon Woods Richardson might already be rostered because he's been pitching well. So you might not even have to make that decision. But I think I could get there. So I'm not too different from you because you're saying like you could, but you're trying not
Yeah.
to, which I get. I think you could try to find something better in 12s, but if you land on Simeon Woods Richardson, you're not killing yourself over that. Mets have a pair of guys going, but they get the Dodgers in Arizona, and it's Tylor Megill and Jose Quintana. Let's start with Megill. I mean, it has the Dodgers, so I think it's a no. But I just want to see: are you anywhere with Megill?
No, definitely not with the Dodgers on the docket. I am interested in Miguel. 11 strikeouts, so far this year. And I mean, at last start, he's going at Cleveland. First start back off the IL, and like
Mm-hmm.
that's not a great matchup. And that's 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. The walks have been a little bit of an issue this year, but he hadn't given up a home run. It's also been 2 starts, so
Yeah,
give it time. But he was really, really good in his minor league rehab work. So I think McGill's one of those guys that I'm probably not starting really in any format this week. But I want him on my roster because I think he is a team streamer. I just can't do it against the Dodgers.
and I do like that. Like there are these times where you're skipping the start, but you might pick somebody up for future.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're saying here with McGill is that he's intriguing enough that even though you're skipping the two step, you're still intrigued enough to hang on. What about Quintana? Obviously, again, I think it's a no with the Dodgers here. But is there anything that he's been doing that gets you on board for the future in deeper leagues?
I have Quintana rostered on either my main event or one of my auction championship teams. He hasn't hit my lineup. He's just been on my roster because
Just kind of hanging out.
every time I go to use him, I go, no, no, I'm not gonna
No,
do it.
don't do that.
And I just feel like if I've got that kind of caution with a guy like Quintana, like he shouldn't be on my roster.
I think
Uh,
that's if you're never getting there with him, like you're
yeah,
saying, why is he on the roster?
so I probably will drop him this week. Uh, so, but yeah, I'm just not a real believer in Quintana this year.
No, and I think that that's completely fair. I did kind of like him coming into the year. I am a bit more open to some of these guys that, are, as Nick would call them, Tobies. But that's a deep league thing, right? And that you're
Yeah.
holding him in a deep league, so like I totally get it. But push come to shove, I'm just not sure that I can find an avenue for Jose Quintana anymore. So I'm with you. I'm not doing that either, and I'm not really trying to get him on board for the future. Mitch Spence for the A's has at Tampa Bay and at Atlanta. Again, with the at Atlanta, it's kind of like that Dodgers situation where you're just not going to get there. But I am curious if you think the Rule 5 Mitch Spence has any intrigue for the future in deep leagues. I know he's on Oakland, so the win probability is light, and he's still kind of building up his innings. But is there anything here for our very deep leagues? Maybe even like AL only, I'm thinking beyond the 15-team mixers because it's an Oakland starter. But what do you think of Mitch Spence, Rule 5 guy that they're kind of converting into the rotation now?
So you're a video game guy, right?
I am,
So
yes.
I was never much of a baseball video game guy, but I played a lot of basketball games and football games.
Mm-hmm.
And
Big
like,
Madden guy, aren't you?
big Madden guy. I mean, I used to be. I don't really play as
Well,
much
yeah.
anymore.
When you played Madden was your thing.
And I would play like just like season after season. I mean, I'd get like 40, 50 seasons in per
Damn.
per game. Like I just um, but like like if you get like so far into the future, all of a sudden like they just like auto generate like player names and stuff like
Yes.
that. Mitch Spence sounds like an auto generated player name,
I was
right?
wondering where this was going, and it was worth the payoff. That's hilarious.
Like they meant to do Spencer, but like
They just cut off the R.
your PlayStation ran out of RAM or whatever. Like it's just like so. That's what Mitch Spence feels like to me. He's pitched really well so far, but he's had massive homer problems in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's pitched very well, it's only been 2 starts. So and then a few relief outings. So I'm not really trusting him against Atlanta. He's a guy to kind of continue to monitor to see if he can kind of keep doing what he's doing. But I think ultimately the homer problems will probably resurface for him.
That's kind of where I'm at with it too. He's an intriguing arm. I liked the Rule 5 pick of Mitch Spence by the A's, but for fantasy purposes, I need to see more before I'm getting there. Taijuan Walker's pitching on one of the best teams in baseball. I think maybe by record the very best team in baseball. Yes, the Phillies, 37-14. So, excellent win probability. He's 3-0 in his 5 starts with a 5.06 ERA and a 154 whip. So this is ultimate win chasing if you go for Taijuan Walker. He goes to your Giants and hosts San Francisco. Not a bad little 2-step, but can you get there with these results?
No.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought maybe I could lure you in.
No, I mean, God, he's got a 6.43 xERA. Like he's giving up over 2 home runs per 9. He's walking guys. I mean, he is getting unlucky. He's got a 3.29 BABIP. He's a career 277 guy, 81% strand rate, and it's probably actually, I think that is a little high. I don't trust Taijuan Walker, Paul. I really don't. I know it's 2 good matchups, but one of them is at home, which is not a great place to pitch anyways.
True.
I'm probably not. I hate rolling out these guys that have just struggled mightily. So
yeah, I can't necessarily disagree. And I'm a longtime Taijuan Walker fan, but being the longtime Taijuan Walker fan that I am, I understand his flaws. I think I'm in tune with kind of separating my heart from my head.
Living in the zone. Like he was a 38% and 39% zone guy the last 2 seasons, and he is 46% in the zone this year, and just getting beaten to hell while he's doing it. So it's a pass for me.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. All right, let's go to Michael King. Oy, he's been difficult to figure out, man. Another guy I like, and I was in on this year. Now, I didn't actually end up with him, and sometimes you can love a guy, and then you just don't get him in any of your drafts, and you're like, ooh, kind of dodged a bullet there. I think I got him in 1 DC. How do you figure this guy out? 7 scoreless against the Dodgers, 6 against the Rockies at home, by the way. This was in San Diego. But then a trip to San Diego where trip to Cincy where he put up a nice quality start, 6 2/3, 3 runs. So 3 of his last 4 here in May are great. The fourth being that stupid Colorado start. Do you trust Michael King? Miami and at KC, which now we know is, 1 up, 1 down there. Is that enough to trust him?
I don't know who or what Michael King is.
I'm not sure he does either, so I think that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like those last 4 starts, and the 2 that really stand out are the 2 scoreless starts, at Arizona where he went 6 scoreless, and then at the Dodgers where he went 7 scoreless.
Mm-hmm.
But they were also kind of completely different starts where, like, at Arizona, he was allowing a lot of contact. He only got 3 strikeouts in 6 innings. And then versus the Dodgers, he was missing bats, got 11 strikeouts in 7 innings. I don't think he knows who he is. Like, I really don't. And I don't love trusting guys like this. Now, I think the Miami start is juicy enough where you're risking it because it's Miami at home and then Kansas City in Kansas City. So at least you're protected from the home run a little bit. But like you continue to mention, like, just because you're protected by the home run doesn't mean you're protected by hits, which can be a problem for Michael King at times. So it is a little bit of a riskier start, that Kansas City one, but I think the Miami one outweighs it enough. When I do my 2-start pitcher article later today, he will be in the here we go category.
Okay.
Because so I don't know what we're going to get.
Yeah, you're not certain with how we're feeling, but I think I'm going to go for it. I think I'm going to trust him here. I will freely admit that my trust level is scant, let's just say.
Miami's just so bad.
They're so terrible, and that's really what gets me there with Michael King, is that they're just horrendous. So that's a major factor, and that is going to be enough in the end to push me there and take the shot against KC, even though I am nervous. I'm duly nervous against KC, but let's ride it out. Let's see how it goes. We will roll the dice on Michael King. What about Blake Snell? Yikes, I even put the little grimace emoji there. It's Philly and New York, the Yankees. They're both at home, but 2 of the best offenses coming to San Francisco. Is it a situation where you paid the high price, you just got to ride with it and start them until things get figured out? Or has it been so bad that you have to start taking some precautions here? Because I will say, I was moved by the 9 hitless innings on his rehab. I was like, okay, I think he found his groove, even though, it's a rehab. We know that the minors aren't the stiffest competition, but I was impressed by that. So I was saying, put Snell back in the lineup, and he just got absolutely clobbered again. Can he be trusted at this point?
Nope.
Not doing it?
No, especially not with it being Philadelphia and
That's
the
Yankees.
Part, like, I know, they're both home starts, which is good, but like Aaron Judge and Juan Soto and Kyle Schwarber and GTO, they can hit
Bryce
bombs
Harper
anywhere. Bryce Harper, like, they can hit bombs anywhere. I'm not messing with either of these 2 lineups for Blake Snell, much less both of them. So
I can't do it.
And like, he came back and did exactly what Blake Snell does, which is, hey, I'm not going to go deep into a game. I'm going to walk a bunch of guys and I'm going to get strikeouts. So like, like, I'm gonna like screw you pretty hard, but make you feel a little good with those strikeouts. But that I don't want that.
No, I am certainly with you there. It's been rough. I root for the guy, but things are ugly right now, and I imagine that he's dealing with some frustration trying to figure this out. Your guy, our guy. I mean, we're both Lance Lynn fans, but our boy Lance Lynn put up a gem against Baltimore here. I did not expect that. I remember I stacked against him in DFS that day, and he said, oh, yeah? You want to stack against me? How about this? 6 innings of 2-hit ball with an unearned run and 5 Ks, no walks. But coming out of that, or coming before that, he had 3 starts of 4 earned runs, going 5, 4 2/3, and 5. 2 of those were against the White Sox and the Angels. So he's been really difficult to figure out. Are you getting anywhere with Lance Lynn, Cincy, and at Philly?
Did you see the I don't even know when it was from, but it just popped up in my feed where he got hit in the head?
No.
Uh, I don't know if it was an old video or if maybe it just popped up, but uh, he was wearing a Cardinals uniform, so it's either a really old video or a
Or
newer
really
video.
new. Yeah.
So he got hit with a comebacker in his head, but it was actually just his hat. Like it was like the brim of his
Oh,
hat.
I have seen that. I think that might be an older clip, but I have
Is
seen
it?
that now that
Oh,
you
okay.
now that you're describing it.
And they're like, how you feeling after that? He goes, it's fine. It hit me in the hat. It's protective gear. And like, your hat isn't protective.
Yeah, it's like Lance. I don't know that I would call it protective gear. I get what he's
Yeah,
trying to. I mean, the bill can be. If it hits
yeah,
perfectly on the bill, sure. But I don't necessarily think protective gear the first thing when I think about a
yeah.
regular old baseball cap.
It just made me laugh.
That's hilarious.
So he's actually pitched fairly well for the most part.
I know.
All of a sudden, the home run problems have kind of dissipated, and maybe he's one of these guys who's really benefiting from a deader ball. The whip is still bad.
And the better park.
Yeah.
Back to St.
In
Louis.
the better part. The whip is still bad. It's a 134 whip. So like that's not what you want to see. And he's doing a good job of not allowing a lot of contact in the zone, and he is doing that by just kind of staying out of the zone. He's dropped his zone percentage 2%, and I believe it's the second lowest of his career. So I am intrigued. He's got Cincinnati, and home versus Cincinnati. I like that one, but the at Philadelphia scares me a little bit. I think this is definitely kind of the here we go tier, kind of that middle tier of starter where we go. I don't know that I want to risk it. If he was on a better team, the team that I thought could win like 2 of these games, I probably would roll with it. But I mean, 15s you're probably rolling, but 10s and 12s, I don't know that I am. Like that Philadelphia start seems like a regression start to me.
Yeah, I think so too. I will say the 15s, it's like a consideration for Lance Lynn, but I'm trying to avoid it. I'm just scared. I'm this is like the Taijuan Walker thing. I've been bought in long enough to know all the ins and outs here and how scary it can be. So I'm going to play it cautiously with Lance Lynn.
You look at Lance Lynn's last 4 starts and you go, he's had 3 bad starts and 1 good start. The good start came against Baltimore, and 2 of the bad starts came against the Angels and the White Sox.
That's what I'm saying. It's like so
you
bananas.
Just don't know what you're gonna get from him. So, like I said, in 15s you probably roll with it, but in 10s and 12s, I think you should find safer options.
Yeah, be careful out there with our boy Lance Lynn. What about Zack Littell? Gets Oakland and at Baltimore. Again, another one of these guys. Not everyone that we bring up is like being a question mark in all formats. I think in 15s, you're not doing much better than Zack Littell. He's pretty firmly in the lineup. 10s and 12s, though, I think you start to ask, okay, 3.42 ERA, 125 whip, about a strikeout per inning, like literally right there. 55 strikeouts and 55 in the 3rd innings. So he's like right there. 2 wins in 10 starts. That's more due to Tampa Bay than him. What do we think? Zack Littell, sorry.
I think Littell at this point is pretty much a must start. Like I think you're probably just rolling with him, especially when you get that Oakland start to start off the week, and while you are facing Baltimore at the end of the week, it's in Baltimore. So I think, and he doesn't walk anybody. He doesn't give up home runs. Like you said, he's almost a strikeout in any kind of guy. I think this is, I think he's a must starter. Like I don't think we even needed to discuss him, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. And I, like I said, sometimes these are just like temperature check-ins to make sure you're good to go with the guy. I am too, but I have seen some questioning around Zack Littell, in the general fantasy community. So I just wanted to make sure that we can assuage any fears that people might have. I think he's pretty bankable. You got to roll with him. I know the wins have been down, but you're just not finding much better in really any format. So Zack Littell firmly in the lineup. Chris Bassitt, I've been staying consistent with him, saying people got to keep rolling him out because he'll figure it out. He had a really brutal start to last year and then turned it around in May. And it was even complete with the bad walk rate, which is what he did this year. He had like rotten April with a bad walk rate. Well, here in May. ERA is down to 288 in 25 innings. The walk rate is down to 8%, which is not amazing, and he can definitely be better than that, but it was 12% in April. So it's getting better. Are we back to full trust status on Bassitt? Because again, I don't think this is a start sit question. It's at the White Sox and home to Pittsburgh. I think you're starting Bassitt everywhere. This one's definitely a temperature check, though, to see if you have any confidence. Have you lost any confidence in Bassitt?
I mean, since we had that discussion on whether or not we should cut him, 288 ERA and a 1 WHIP.
There you go.
Like, the
And we
strikeouts
said
aren't
no,
really
by the way.
there.
We did say stick with him.
Yeah, the strikeouts aren't there, but like he's doing kind of Bassitt things. So I think he's back into the must start tier.
Yeah, I think you lock him back in there if you were wavering at all. And I get it. It was scary. Like if you dodge no pun intended, if you dodge the Dodgers start there, totally understand, because he had been shaky and it was kind of teetering on the edge there in April, and then they blasted him for 7. So if you dodge that, then your ERA with Bassitt's been really good. Even if you've eaten every start, though, a 4.39, it isn't killing you. The 146 WHIP isn't great, but it's gonna improve. I think he'll continue to be better with the walks there too. So Chris Bassitt firmly back in. We got a couple Nats. I doubt we're getting to either of them because it's at Atlanta and at Cleveland, so two of the best teams going. And Patrick Corbin I put on here sometimes just to make me laugh. Yeah. But Swerve and Jake Irvin might be in the Tylor Megill status where you said you're not starting him, but you do have some intrigue beyond this week. And I wondered if maybe Jake Irvin had that sort of status for you, because he has a 3.79 ERA, 107 WHIP in his 57 innings, only 44 Ks, and he's 2-5 because he's a Nat. This two-step feels way too difficult for me at Atlanta, at Cleveland. But do you like Jake Irvin at all beyond this week?
I think he is a deep league team streamer. I know people are going to look at the walks and the home runs and go, hey, look, he's not walking guys, he's not giving up home runs. You know what he is doing? He's giving up a shit ton of hard contact.
And not being burned for it?
Yeah, just not getting burned for it. And that's why, like, if you look at, like, he's got a 3.79 ERA and the xERA is 4.74, like, you go, oh, okay, he is, like, yeah, he's getting lucky in the BABIP. He's getting lucky just in the amount of hard contact he's given up, not like burning him. And I do think that at some point, Jake Irvin is going to have some massive regression. No, he doesn't give up. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it could be these next 2 weeks, because after this week, or after next week, I should say, he gets Atlanta again.
Yeah.
So he gets double Atlanta. And then
if you've been streaming Jake Irvin, this is the time where you, like, you know, give him a little salute and say thank you for your service and, like, goodbye. Like, because, yeah, I think this is going to end really poorly. I'll be really interested to see, like, Matty Davis's, like, you know, bad start tweet on Jake Irvin, because I think a few of them are coming.
I think it's coming too. Yeah, this could be really scary. He's done some nice things. Like you said, take that greatness, give him a little high five and say, I'll catch you on the flip side there, Jake Irvin. And maybe we revisit him down the line if the skills stabilize and he starts to face some easier teams. But with this setup, at Atlanta, at Cleveland, and then home to Atlanta next week, I'm off the Jake Irvin train for quite some time. And
then Patrick Corbin, we should talk about just in the context of not only is this one of the worst contracts in the history of baseball, but it was paired with a Steven Strasburg contract, which is one of the worst contracts in the history of baseball. So if Nationals fans are wondering why you guys are so bad, like, just look at what they did with that pitching. Like, that pitching was supposed to be, like, dominant with Patrick Corbin and Steven Strasburg leading the rotation. So it's the last year of the contract. You wonder at what point they just say goodbye. Like, why do they even keep rolling? I mean, you've already eaten all this money. Like, just let it go.
The tough part too is, like, the contract for Corbin was signed in 2019. 2019 was great, right? They did the thing. They won the World Series. It was awesome. That was the first year. Next year, of course, pandemic year. 66 innings. I'm not going to judge him too harshly. It didn't go well, but you could feasibly say, hey, small sample, he'll bounce back. He decidedly did not bounce back. The next 3 years, Patrick Corbin has led baseball in losses in 2 of them, in the National League in losses in the other one of those. He's just been beyond dreadful. And I'm with you. Like, at what point, like, why are you still running him out? I guess because you need to fill the innings, but my man is just batting practice out there.
You have to have somebody better than this, though. Like, I mean, like, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, like, you have to have somebody in your organization that can be better than this. Like, I just don't know how. Like, he, over the last 3 seasons combined, he has a 2.2 WAR. Like, you add all those seasons together.
I'm surprised it's positive.
Well, just because the innings. He's got 558 and 2/3 innings with a 5.80 ERA over the last 3 seasons.
Jesus, dude. Poor Patrick Corbin. On some level, I feel a little bad, but then you see what he's getting paid, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And listen, it's not all about that, though, right? I felt the same way with Chris Davis when he was melting. Like, yeah, they get paid, and oh, he can sleep on a bed of money or whatever, but people don't want to, professionals don't want to be this bad at their job. Like, there's just no way that this doesn't wear on Patrick Corbin. And so I can feel some sympathy for him. It's not financial sympathy. Yes, he is fine financially. But professionally, this has to suck. He was a G. Like, he was a really good pitcher.
Yeah.
He's a 2-time All-Star, 2-time Cy Young finisher, actually different seasons there. In 2013, he made the All-Star team, but didn't finish in the Cy Young. Made the All-Star team in 2018, 5th in Cy Young, and then the 2019, he was a down ballot 11th place finisher. So, like, he had some great seasons. And in fact, 2012 through 2019, Patrick Corbin had a 3.80 ERA and a 127 WHIP in 1,150 innings. That's awesome. And then, like you said, it's just been an absolute nightmare since then. And part of me does feel bad, but hey, keep cashing them checks while they're paying you, and obviously, even if they send you home, you still get to cash the checks.
Many of us go to a job that we absolutely hate. We're not getting paid $140 million, right?
True.
Like there is at least that, but like, man, like you're in some ways like he's almost stuck having to do it because like while he doesn't need the money, like whatever $140 million divided by 6 is like you're showing up to any job for $17 million or whatever it is. Like,
exactly. And like we don't really know where his passion is. Like I'm sure he's bummed at how poorly he's pitching, but he might still be motivated to like teach young players and pass on wisdom that he has, because I know he's been bad, but Patrick Corbin can give usable wisdom to young pitchers and things like that. So I'm just kind of curious of like what his day-to-day is like, because like he knows the numbers, he knows he's terrible. He is arguably the single worst pitcher in baseball when you include the volume piece, right? Like somebody could come up and be a brief call up and be terrible, but for somebody that pitches every 5th day, he's got to be the worst pitcher in baseball. So I feel bad for him, but hey, cash those checks, do your thing, Patrick Corbin, and as long as the Nats keep paying you to show up, keep doing it and do the best you can. All right, Justin, good luck with everything on your waiver bids this week. Are you and Jason getting together on Sunday?
I don't know, because it is a holiday weekend. And
that's true, Memorial Day weekend. So
I don't know if Jason's going to be available. So
to that end, what are you doing Monday?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Let me get back to you on that. We may need to just push it till Tuesday.
We might take the day and push it to Tuesday because even though we missed yesterday, I wouldn't mind a full day off, just like unplugging. And listen, y'all, I'm never going to pretend my job is hard. It's not. It's awesome that I get to do this, but it can be a lot just in terms of the volume. So a day to unplug and just watch some baseball on the couch or something might be right up my alley there. So I think let's just say now, let's just move to Tuesday. I don't even want to do.
Yeah,
let's just not worry about it. So, all right, man, I'll talk to you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Take it easy.